Last 11 years, the AL won the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, but we've got to get into all the excitement that led up to it, red carpet, the game itself, plus looking at the starting pitching for the Phillies and grading them for their first half of the season. All that is coming up today on PHLY Phillies Podcast. And we've got a lot to recap because we got to see the stars shining on the red carpet last night. We got to see the game go down, mic'd up moments, some big plays, and also a little bit of everything that we got to see from the fashion fits to the game itself. Welcome into PHLY Phillies Podcast. I'm thrilled to have joining me today, not only our producer Tyler Zulli, myself, Renee Washington, but two special guests in studio today. We've got OJ Spivey, the sports writer, award-winning sports writer with Philly Tribune. And then from Underground Philly, we've got Kyle Bennett, podcaster here. Welcome, guys, to the show. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Renee. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I'd love for you guys, before we even get into the show, I gave everybody a quick blurb about who you are, but let them know a little bit about yourselves. Give them your elevator pitch. Who is OJ? Who is Kyle? OJ, I'll let you go first.
Well, I'm OJ Spivey with the Philadelphia Tribune. I'm a lifelong Philadelphian, lifelong sports fan, even though, I have to write stories and be neutral for the most part. I'm a fan. I'm from West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Hey.
The pun, right? But, I've been a Philadelphia sports fan all my life, and it's really a joy to write about sports for your hometown team every day. So.
I love that.
I'm Kyle Bennett. I'm from South Jersey, born and raised Philadelphia sports fan, founded Underground Sports Philadelphia back in 2018. And we podcast covering all things Philly sports and a whole bunch of other national sports as well. And, when you grow up and your first championship you witness is the Philadelphia Phillies winning the World Series on your 15th birthday, it's pretty special. And you fall in love with the Fightin' Phils, and they're my number one. So it's a pleasure to be here.
That was your actual birthday?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the rain delay.
Wow. What a birthday. The rain delay, nobody liked it but you, apparently, because it allowed you to celebrate your birthday
awesome.
with the championship. We need to have your birthday a little bit more around the World Series and everything. What's up, everybody in the chat as well? Chris Lemmer back to number one in the chat. We've got Frank, Philly 007, K-Red, Purple, and John. Big Juicy Germ. What a name. Listen, before we even get into the game itself, two things that jump out at me from the All-Star week that was, one, our girl Ingrid Andress came out with a statement that she was drunk. And we haven't had a chance to talk about on the show. We talked about it yesterday. Tyler and I got into just how bad it was and why we thought it was so bad. And neither of us thought it was because she was drunk. But she did come out with a statement. I know Big Juicy Germ saying it in the chat. She mentioned how she was drunk. She's getting help and checking herself into rehab. And then closed it out with saying, I heard rehab is fun. Personally, I was like, that's a lie. Something here is fishy. If she really is dealing with any sort of alcohol addiction, I really hope that she gets the help that she needs. But I do not love the tone of that, of like, I heard rehab is fun. That last line, like, I was all for it. And then I got to the end, I was like, as someone that has people in my life that have dealt with addictions, like that to me screamed, you're not taking this seriously, if this is real. On the other side, I know people are like, conspiracy, doesn't sound right. This is just an excuse as a way to like make up a reason why she sounded so bad. Other people were saying if she really was drunk, if you're a good singer, a lot of people might sound better when they're drinking. I don't know. But overall, personally, I think I sound better when I'm drinking. I don't know about anybody else. But if it's serious, I hope she gets the help she needs,
100%.
Essentially.
And I do understand the tone. And like, I think as a world, we forget that like 32, which is Ingrid's age, is still relatively young.
Yes.
So I think, you know, in an instance where she is on this national platform and is, you know, all the spotlight is on her, she's probably trying to dance around it in that statement to try to make light of it as much as possible in a situation that, you know, if it is true, could be relatively scary for somebody going to rehab for the first time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the other part of it was that I was thinking like, why are you drinking? But if it's an addiction, that is your why. You know, you don't know how to cope with that situation other than to drink. It's unfortunate because you are on a stage where everyone in baseball, a lot of people in sports are watching you, and this is our first impression of you. This is our first time seeing you perform as a 4-time Grammy nominee, and come to find out you were drunk. It's just, not a great look. But I hope that she does get the support and help and guidance that she does need, because addictions are nothing to play with. I feel like this is the time we should drop on the bottom, like, if you need help with an addiction, call. But seriously, if anybody is dealing with an addiction, in Ingrid's case, like she said, I hope they get that support. Now, the other part of it was the red carpet fits. This is a chance when it's All-Star Week to show out, bring the personality, show people what you're about. We saw everything from Shohei Ohtani's dog, because he's apparently more excited about his dog decoy on the inside of his jacket than his own wife. And I was like, why is he not smiling with his wife, but he's teasing, showing off the inside of his jacket? We saw all the Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn because Major League Baseball is trying to make them Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And then we, of course, saw the Phillies show up in style, from the light blue fit by Alec Boehm. We saw Bryce with like the Western look going on with the cowboy boots and the cowboy hat. And then we saw the suited guys. You know, Sanchez was suited, looking nice. Trey Turner was in like the cream color. Fitz, what did you guys think about the red carpet overall? Not even just the Phillies in general, but some of the swag that we saw in the fits that they rolled out.
I love the MLB red carpet. I think it's one of the more unique things that we get from a sports all-star game that every other sport doesn't traditionally do. Like, nobody really pays attention to the Pro Bowl anymore. The NBA All-Star game, more people are tuned in for like the skills competition night, and nobody really watches the game. I feel like the pomp and circumstance is still there for the MLB All-Star game, and I think the red carpet is just one of those things where I think people lose connection with baseball players and they feel like they don't have personality. I think the MLB All-Star game allows the big stars to showcase that on the red carpet, and I think everybody like kind of showed their own flair. My personal favorite was Jeff Hoffman showing up in not only the white suit, but the suit shorts. I'm a huge fan of those, and I love how he pulled those off.
That was definitely a style. OJ, did you have a favorite from the outfits that rolled out?
Well, my favorite was Alec Boehm, and being in a Texas heat, for him to come out and it's, you know, you just imagine trying to wear a suit and, you know, 100-degree weather and it's bright and sunny, but I like the colors. I like the way that he told his story in the inside of his jacket, his journey, coming all the way from high school and going through the minor leagues. And, you know, we all know his story. I hate this bleeping place and everything, but just to piggyback on what Kyle said, and from a marketing standpoint, it's really the only time we get to see Major League Baseball players kind of put their hair down and try not be so serious as we see them on a field and all. So I think it was a great showcase for these guys to really relax and let the fans see who they are as people and their families as well.
And quite literally put their hair down for Alec. I mean, his is always down. But like, it was a chance to see them off the field. And also with how many games we have in a baseball season, you don't have a chance to see the extra. You know, we every once in a while get the pre-game fits and everything. But because it's 162 games, all you see is them playing baseball. And so I love the fact that the All-Star Weekend, actually make a good point, Kyle, because as you were talking it through, I was thinking for the NBA All-Star game, for the WNBA, for the NFL, you don't see red carpet opportunities. You don't really get a chance to see the outfits as much. That's not the hype around the event. Whereas for Major League Baseball, this is one of their, you know, key market opportunities to show who these guys are. You could see them with their spouses. You get to see Bryce had his newborn baby who looks like the size of like
with the custom baby jacket.
I know. I was like, what? The coolest baby ever, and has no idea what life she was born into. Congrats to her. But it is a good chance to see them. You know, you got to see Ellie De La Cruz rocking, you know, the fit, the light pink, and then he had the light pink Louis Vuitton cleats during the game. Like, I love the extra that guys can bring. And I thought the home run derby, we saw it in spurts. We talked about it yesterday. You could see Teoscar Hernandez, Alec Boehm, some guys bringing the personality. But yesterday on the red carpet was all personality. All right, so then as we got into the game, though, the game is just a formality. Like, realistically, guys just want to go out there, do like Cristopher Sanchez did. Get your pitches in and get out and stay healthy. And it's a chance to, well, for pitchers alone, you're just going one inning. You're throwing a few pitches and you're done. But even for everybody, a chance to just like have some fun, get mic'd up, have some moments with your friends in a different space. I loved seeing the Phillies in this moment, finally getting a chance to like take the All-Star game together. You see the infield, the chatter between Bryce and Trey and Alec. And, you know, this is a really special team. And I think the interviews that we saw, especially Bryce, because he was interviewed a lot throughout the course of the early part of well, it's only Wednesday. It's weird to say the week. He was interviewed a lot, but hearing the discussion of how close they are, the team dinners, the brotherhood, you got to see it in full display. And I loved that moment for them to have a chance to celebrate together, have some fun, get some laughs, and show the baseball world what they're all about, too, Hassel.
Whoever's decision it was to mic up all three of the Phillies infielders at the same time deserves an infinite raise because you could tell just from those moments like how close this team is. And I love that, you know, Bryce takes the subtle jab at Bryson Stott, too, that, you know, I wish one of our starters wasn't on the beach right now, because imagine how amazing it would have been if Bryson Stott's the starting second baseman in the All-Star game along with them. But, you know, the great banter between them, Alec Boehm running into the fence and then immediately coming back like nothing happened was incredible. And like you said, Renee, like it's one of those things that this team is so close. And I think it's really special, too, when you listen to Bryce do these interviews on the big network shows and he's talking about how special the relationship he has and the team has with Dave Dombrowski.
Yes.
That's not normal in any major sport, especially in baseball where, you know, a guy could be on a team and then the next day they're gone. I think the fact that the core of this team has such a special relationship with Dave Dombrowski infinitely increases just the likability and the fun that this team has because they know they can trust the guy who's kind of driving this ship.
Yeah, that's important because you want to be able to have that relationship. Who wants to be at a job but you don't like your boss or you don't like your supervisors, your higher ups? You want to be in a position where there's respect, but there's also that mutual respect of we're working together and we can have a relationship, a friendship that transcends just contracts and finances and things like that. And I think this team, as Bryce was even mentioning, they really do just get it. They really do just understand, okay, we're bought in. We want to win games. You know, it's a bigger cause. It's about winning it all. It's not even about the success of being the first team to 62 wins or being the top team in the league right now. It's bigger picture. These guys are on the same page. And I think being mic'd up, you did get that because now I'm wondering how many times during the game are these guys reacting this way? Like when Trey Turner made that incredible diving play to his left, which, by the way, probably would have been an error if he was in a Phillies jersey, but it's fine. I was like, Trey! I was happy, but I was kind of irritated because you can make that play back-to-back, no bobbles, no errors from Trey. And you hear Bryce reacting. I'm like thinking, now every time I watch a game, I'm going to be kind of wondering, how are they reacting to each other? How are you reacting when someone runs into a wall or trips or makes a mistake or does something really good? And I think it was nice to see them peel back the layer a little bit in that moment.
Well, Trey had the heavier belt on. He said, you know, I don't normally wear these things.
Maybe you should wear a heavier belt.
Exactly. You know, baseball players are superstitious anyway, so maybe that's something that he can bring back and ask Major League Baseball to allow him to wear it and everything, even though he said it was uncomfortable. And just to touch on Bryce for a minute, I think he not only understands his role as a Philly, I think he understands his role as a face of not only the franchise, but Major League Baseball itself. And a lot of baseball players, they kind of shy away from being in the spotlight. He understands his role. He understands that he's a superstar and he's a player that a lot of fans all across the country look at and look to. And he wants that spotlight. And he calls out Major League Baseball to have the players more marketed. And he's one of those guys who's willing to do that. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for wanting to put his face out there as much as he can. And he doesn't mind talking to the media either. So that's a good thing for us, of course.
Yeah, and he gets it. And I was saying that yesterday when I saw him doing the interview prior to the game on the red carpet, showing off his outfit. I'm like, Bryce Harper gets it. He understands every All-Star game, London series, wherever he is, he's fitting in the vibe. It's
Right in
bigger than
front.
the Phillies,
Yes.
you know? Like, you go to London and you embrace, every aspect of London. You change your walkout song to the Spice Girls. You do all the little things. You go to Texas, you're rocking a Texas fit. It's bigger than even just the Phillies, that he really is putting, it's a great point, baseball in a different light of, you can be relatable. You don't even have to be a Phillies fan, and you're probably a fan of Bryce Harper. And
Exactly.
there aren't, in baseball, as much of those types of players. There are a lot of talented players. You look at an Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, a Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, a Bryce Harper. But how personable is Shohei Ohtani, for example? And that's just him. That's just who he is. But a lot of guys are that way. And a big part of that, I think, is because of how long the season is, that they're kind of like, I don't really want to do.
They're superstitious.
Yeah, they're so superstitious.
It's a grind. And really, I mean, even if you play in college, you play 60 games a year. That's a lot. And a lot of these guys are coming up, and then you play 162.
Whew.
I mean, it's really a grind to just try to stay up. Number one, stay healthy. And then number two, you're under tremendous pressure to perform night after night after night. So,
yeah, and that's the key. I mean, they are burnt out of dealing with the extra fluff. And I don't blame them. That's why they don't always want to talk to the media. That's why they don't want to do the little things. But Bryce Harper is a guy that, you've got 3 babies, you've got all these games, you're one of the best players in baseball right now, and you're still making time to sit down on international talk on Monday, take time to go on the broadcast yesterday and have these conversations. And then also, when he's there, he's not... Sometimes you get players that are very short or very dry. Nope, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's conversational, he's down to earth. And so it is nice to see that from Bryce.
He's a tremendous ambassador for the game, and baseball needs that. They need more of the players to be in that spotlight, and baseball as a whole has to do a better job. But I think what Kyle said, little things like the red carpet will allow these guys to allow the sport per se to see these guys' personality and see who they are, because at the end of the day, athletes, they're all human just like us.
And Bryce wasn't afraid to call out Major League Baseball right around Rob Manfred yesterday and saying, hey, it'd be cool if we went back to wearing just our uniforms in the All-Star game.
I totally agree.
Thank you for bringing that up.
There
I
was
almost
a
forgot.
plethora of articles that came out last night saying that Major League Baseball is heavily considering going back to their uniforms
and I
in
definitely
2025.
posted about it. So yeah, bring it back. I mean, it can be a bit of, a bit sound like an old man, sound like a purist and everything.
Yeah.
But I think with the original uniforms of everyone wearing their own uniform, I just think that's a part of tradition that needs to stay.
And I've even said, I know Major League Baseball, they're in it trying to make as much money as they possibly can. You can still create a quote unquote new jersey that still looks the same, but even make the logo on the jersey gold or something like that to stand out and make it more
good
all-star
idea, actually. Right.
Where you don't have to have these neon colors that didn't really fit the vibe of the Texas Rangers whatsoever. You had the American League wearing khakis last night.
Oh my gosh,
it was so bad. And, I get they're all trying to make money, trying to sell as many jerseys as possible, but there's another way to do it where you'll still get those fans buying jerseys, buying the hats and everything, even if you just make a subtle change like a gold, adding, the star on the hat, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, nothing wrong with still having a patch on the hat.
Exactly.
Flag here, like you said, little gold trim. And just real quick, I know we live in a time of the internet and we're able to see, jerseys just through our phone and everything. But, when I was growing up, the All-Star game was key for a kid like me because, a lot of us didn't have cable or, it wasn't what it was today. And that probably was the only time that you would see a Minnesota Twins uniform or a Kansas City Royals uniform because they weren't on TV as much. And I think that's part of the tradition, I think, that a lot of fans still want to see.
Well, I think, to be honest, first of all, the actual uniforms themselves were not good, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys are saying. I know in the chat, Ryan's saying that you agree with Kyle. Drop those neons. K-Red saying the same thing, even if you slap a patch on it. Listen, the actual design of the jerseys was not good. Somebody was tweeting me saying it looks like you're having the Panthers and the 49ers in a scrimmage, not even a game, a scrimmage, because it looked like practice jerseys. The AL jerseys were the worst. And to your point, it's all about being able to market and sell. Now you can sell more jerseys. You saw people in the stands wearing them. Libby done. We saw people rocking the jerseys. But there's a better way to do it that still gives the brand of who these guys are. The hat is not enough. Like, you have to really pay attention to look at the logo on the hat to know what team they're from, to look at the little details of the jersey. Keep them in their traditional home, traditional dark uniforms, and allow them to also now showcase. Now you're getting the mic'd up moments. Backtrack. You already got the red carpet moments. You're getting the mic'd up moments. You're getting the plays. And for maybe somebody else watching, like you were saying, OJ, a kid watching, whoever, that's more either like the next generation, a casual fan. Maybe you're a fan of the Phillies, but you're watching and now you're like, oh, wait a minute, I really like that guy. That's the pitcher for the Oakland A's. Or I really like that guy that's, just smashed the home run for the Dodgers. But now you know who they are. And now you can connect their name, their face to their team. And it's a missed opportunity. Right. It is a missed opportunity. So yes, you might make more quote unquote money selling those jerseys, but think about how much more money you'd make connecting fans with the players the way that we used to see. I mean, the NBA doesn't do it anymore, but I used to love when they had their jerseys for the All-Star game. Like that type of stuff. I love it. They do it for the home run derby, do it for the game, bring it back. That's definitely the right move. And you know where you guys can make the right move on your health? That's with our friends over at Rite Aid, because as was mentioned in the chat, drink your water, stay hydrated. And Rite Aid has all that you need to stay refreshed and stay hydrated. They have a line of beverages that range from those familiar family favorites to the revitalizing, better-for-you options. And here's some of them. They've got their traditional products like their water bottles, which are purified spring electrolytes, distilled and alkaline bottled water. They've got flavored waters as well as coconut water. I finally got my coconut water. I stocked them again. I love a good coconut water. It's fat-free, it's non-GMO, gluten-free, as well as less than 1% sugar, and it has a wide array of just nutrients that you need to stay hydrated. It's hot out here, guys. You got to stay hydrated. And also in the summertime, who doesn't love a nice cold single serve of iced tea or lemonade? Pour that over a nice glass with some ice in there. Oh, delicious, refreshing, sweetened with real sugar, no preservatives. And then Rite Aid also has things like cold pressed juices, which are 100% fruits and vegetables. They've got all types of flavored drinks. I love their sweet cranberry apples and strawberry lemonades. Delicious, refreshing, and you can enjoy them as well. Rite Aid has all the different options for you to stay hydrated and some refreshing drinks for you. And it is, of course, important that in these hot summer days, we're in the midst of a heat wave. It's excessive heat warnings that we're getting every single day on our weather apps for those that pay attention like myself. So it's important to stay hydrated during these summer months, and you can get the refreshment also delivered to your front door. Rite Aid has the same-day delivery when you go online, RiteAid.com/shop for same-day delivery. Who doesn't love the convenience of sitting back, watching some baseball, watching some games, and getting Rite Aid delivered to your front door? You can shop online, you can go in store and pick up, and of course, check out all that they have in their refreshing products over at Rite Aid. And also, while I'm telling you about our friends, let me talk to you guys about Sleep Healthy, because over at Sleep Healthy, they have all of the benefits of making sure to stop the snore. I was just talking about it with somebody the other day. A lot of us are out here dealing with sleep apnea, snoring at night. It has actually caused 50% of divorces, apparently, according to their statistics. That's bad. If you can stop the snore and allow your house to sleep peacefully at night, why not take advantage of it? Dr. Andrew Cohen is a board-certified dentist. He works in dental sleep medicine and provides him and his staff with one-on-one opportunities to get options to be able to sleep better. Stop the snore, stop that feeling of waking up in the middle of the night with the choking with sleep apnea. They provide you with other options, even around the CPAP machines, which are very big, uncomfortable, tough to sleep with. And that way you can make sure to get good sleep at night versus snoring, CPAP machines, or anything else that comes along with it. So with Dr. Andrew Cohen and his team, they are committed to stopping the snore by providing you with a 15% off when you go in for your 2-hour initial exam. That's split into 2 sessions. One session is information gathering, which looks at your medical history and imaging. And then the second, they take a look at the results. They give you some recommendations to provide you a chance to help get good night's sleep. I love waking up in the morning feeling refreshed. I hate those days you wake up and you're like, did I even sleep at all? Well, with our friends at Sleep Healthy PA, you can wake up every day feeling revitalized, feeling like you got a nice restful night's sleep, and make sure to let them know that us at PHLY sent you again to get that 15% off to stop the snore and start getting some good night's rests. All right, let's look ahead because there's a lot more that we want to dive into today. So first things first, to put a bow on the All-Star game, some other cool moments that we got to see. We did get to see, of course, the AL won, yada, yada, yada. 5 unanswered runs. They were able to go on and win for the 10th time in the last 11 years. The Ted Williams All-Star Game MVP went to Jarren Duran. Great for him. Happy for him. Also got to see Shohei Ohtani become the first Dodger to hit a home run in the All-Star Game. And then Mason Miller, if you still want to become a Philly, we're still open to you because Mason Miller threw the fastest pitch we've ever seen in an All-Star Game. The pitch tracking era has seen, I should say, 103.6 miles per hour. So since the pitch tracking era began in 2008, we have not seen a pitch like we saw from Mason Miller Tuesday night. So always great to see all the first and all the memorable moments that come through the All-Star Game. And most importantly, a nice chance for the guys to get recognized, have some fun, and get out and be able to do something a little bit different.
It was cool to see all three Phillies got a hit.
Yes.
All the Phillies pitchers collectively threw a no-hitter combined. So they did their job. Also, I noticed, Jarren Duran wins the All-Star Game MVP. In 2008, another Boston Red Sox won the All-Star Game MVP. So I'm not saying what I'm saying, but, history has a tendency to repeat itself.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Conspiracy.
It's great to look at the trends. But again, I think it was just a cool showcase to see, number one, to see the Phillies players themselves and to see how good they are. I mean, you got to see a few of the players of why they're a 62-win team. Whether it was Bryce Harper, Alec Bohm, Trey Turner showing their skills, showing their pedigree, why they are all-stars, but also seeing Cristopher Sanchez, also seeing Jeff Hoffman and those guys, Matt Strahm, those guys pitch. And, it's just a testament of how good these guys are. And every last one of those guys deserve to be there.
Yeah. And there were so many first-time All-Stars. I forget the exact number, but it was like 30 plus that were first-time All-Stars. I think part of it also is when you have a chance to be a part of the games themselves, stepping into that, there's so many different emotions that come with it. There's the excitement. There's also maybe even some nerves of like, I want to go out there and show that I'm an All-Star and show that I belong. And we saw it from the Phillies in the games prior to the break, and we saw it again last night from the All-Stars, that they handled it so well. And to your point, I think it is a really good chance for people outside of us, outside of everybody in the chat, and Brandon and Chris and Ray and K-Rad and everyone that's tuned in on Twitter and YouTube, as well as us that follow the Phillies every day. If you don't really know as much about Cristopher Sanchez or Jeff Hoffman. You maybe aren't paying attention to Matt Strahm or Alec Bohm the same way that we do. So it was nice to be able to see them show some flashes of why they are so good, but as you mentioned, OJ, also why the Phillies are so good. You have a franchise record, a Major League Baseball record, 8 guys get invited total. Of course, Ranger and Zach did not make the trip. And to have so many guys involved, it just was a reminder of this is why. This is not a fluke. This is not a conspiracy. The Phillies are really good. And so I love that moment for them. And that being said, a big reason why they've been successful is their starting pitching. So today, much like we did yesterday, we're going to take some time to now take a look back at the first half of the season because 62 wins in. The next closest team is at 58. There's a few teams in the AL that are at 58 wins. The Phillies have set themselves up really nicely. And a big reason behind that is their starting pitching. Now, we're going to look at grading each starting pitcher. We're not going to... we're going to just give our thoughts on stats, what we liked, what we didn't like, and then we're going to include a couple guys like Tyler Phillips and Spencer Turnbull as starting pitchers. Michael Mercado was a bullpen arm that we discussed yesterday. So for everybody in the chat, be ready to grade with us, put on your teacher hats, professors, and let's get into it because let's start with a couple of guys that did not get as many pitches. I'm looking at you, Tyler Phillips, who just got the call up. Tyler Phillips got the opportunity. We saw the excitement as a Bishop Eustace grad to be able to come into the Phillies starting rotation. He's the backup of the backup, of course, with Taijuan Walker going down, then Spencer Turnbull going down, and Tyler Phillips made his debut first in the bullpen, and then we got to see him as a starter. And at 26 years old, to get that moment that he, that full circle moment as someone that watched with his dad at games to now be able to pitch with the Phillies, it was great to see. But of course, we have a very small sample size to look at for Tyler Phillips in terms of grading the first half. But he does have, from that one game now, a 4.5 ERA. And that's actually including his bullpen game as well. But he's pitched 10 innings total, has had 12 strikeouts, a .90 whip. There's not really much you can grade for him. I would just say he's based on where he should be and how he was expected to come in to help, I think I would just give him a B, just because it was such a, again, small sample size, and he did what he was supposed to do, essentially. He went out there, he looked good, and he was steady for the guy that you're calling up to replace your fifth starter. Yeah,
I think Tyler Phillips, I agree. I think you give him a B, pitched out of the bullpen when he first came up, gets that start. I think the number one thing, all stats aside, that stood out to me is he is so confident in himself, and he's confident in the way that he pitches, his approach. And as a pitcher, it's almost the equivalent to, like, in football, being a defensive back. You have to have, like, that different mindset where, like, one wrong pitch can mess up an entire outing, but you have to move on so quickly. And I think he has that factor in him. I'm excited to see because, he made such a good impression. He's staying in the rotation, and I think that's a great sign for him that Rob Thompson believes in him. Caleb Cotham believes in him. So we'll see what he continues to do out of the break. But I think his confidence is something that you can't quantify almost. And I think that's so huge for somebody coming up at age 26, and especially pitching for your hometown team. Like, that can overtake any type of confidence that you have in yourself. It can really, like, get the nerves going because you want to impress for your hometown team. And I think that's the number one thing that stood out to me, especially in that first start.
Yeah, I'd be remiss to maybe give him a B plus because of kind of what you said, Kyle. We kind of eat our young sometimes here in Philadelphia. For him to go out there and just have such a good outing, first time as a starter. You said Renee, being a South Jersey kid, and everything. The stakes are so high for this team. The stakes are already high for the regular starters. And, Zach Wheeler has an off game, or Aaron Nola has an off game. It's like, okay, what's wrong with them? What we see with Ranger Suarez, which I know we'll talk about in a second, but just for Phillips to just go out there and just calm all his nerves, being a local kid and also being on a great team, to get out there and give him some innings and get his first win, I think that's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, what do you grade Tyler?
Yeah, I think it's probably unfair to give this kid a grade after, such a short sample size. The poise, we talked about it with Mercado in his first start, but the poise from Phillips looked really strong in the first start. I will say this. I think he's eventually going to have to lean on his fastball a little bit more. Yeah. He's clearly trusts the sweeper as his number one pitch. And I don't blame him because the metrics on the fastball aren't particularly strong. 93, 94, 95. He's not going to blow you away with any kind of excessive velocity. I think the good things that I'm seeing out of him, and maybe it's because teams don't have a script on the guy just yet, he's getting a lot of swings and misses. He's getting a lot of chase. He seems to be pounding the zone with the fastball when he's using it. He hasn't walked a hitter through 10 innings so far. I will say this. I think that I want to see probably 3 or 4 more starts before I give this kid a grade. An encouraging start, however, to his major league career.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I feel like a B is or a B plus, like right in that area is fine. Ultimately, you could say an A, and I see in the chat we've got some various grades coming in. Frank, you're saying you're giving him an A for the story and the fact that he got the job as a backup to the backup to the backup. And so you're giving him an A. K-Red saying his rough draft gets a B. It is a rough draft. That's a really good way to put it. It's like a rough draft or an incomplete. Like, we don't have the final version, but it's one of those, this is a great start. There's not as much red ink on the paper, but we definitely need to see more from him. And then you guys are talking through him talking to himself because, yes, that is also very intriguing. So I do feel like for Tyler, it's just not enough to, as you all mentioned, to really grade him in terms of how he's going to be able to produce, because we also know it's one thing to start well. It's another thing to be able to maintain that and continue that game after game. So after the break is going to be a huge test for him. And you know what? Where you guys don't have to worry about being tested because they always have great options for you. And they have the decades and decades of history to back it up. It's our friends over at Miller Lite. Let me tell you about our friends at Miller Lite and exactly why they've been the light beer that you can choose over the years. With Miller Lite, they keep it simple, and this is what we love. You don't have to worry about that heavy feeling, that full feeling, the bloating or anything like that. It's undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories, and it's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and really focuses on keeping what matters most. The taste, it's a light beer, and it tastes like beer. Less filling and only 96 calories with Miller Lite. And we have tons of Miller Lite that we're always able to enjoy here at PHLY. It's great to crack open when you're watching a game. It's great to crack open when you're at maybe hanging out at the pool, the beach, whatever it is you're doing this summer, have a nice, cold, refreshing Miller Lite to enjoy it. And know that you don't have to worry about choosing what's best. As the commercial says, it's Miller Lite. It's Miller time, always. Miller Lite has great taste. It's less filling, and you can always trust that it tastes like Miller time. Miller Lite can also get delivered right to your door. Again, we love convenience. We're getting a little lazy in 2024, and you can get Miller Lite delivered right to your door by going to MillerLite.com/PHLY-Phils. Or, of course, you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with 96 calories per 12 ounces, fewer calories and carbs than the premium regular beer. That's our friends over at Miller Lite. And while we're talking about drinking responsibly, let's also talk about spending responsibly with our friends at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. TrueMark is the place that allows you to make sure you can prepare for the future. Buying that house, getting that car, college fund, whatever it is you're looking to save for, with TrueMark Financial, they make it a lot easier. Let's say you're traveling and you want to go to some of the away games in the second half of the season to rock with the Phillies and cheer them on. Easy to take advantage of all of that with our friends at TrueMark. At TrueMark, if you're traveling for Phillies away games, you can keep track of your spending with TrueMark Financial's mobile app. Their mobile app allows you to access your funds at any time, anywhere. Check your balances, check those transactions, make transfers, pay bills. I'm all about mobile banking. I know not everybody is. I don't know where you guys all stand for that, but I'm all about the convenience of being able to see where is my money. I was just calling the other day and found out there was a charge to my card that was not mine. If it wasn't for me having that mobile app, I would not have been able to find it. With TrueMark, you don't have to worry about that issue. You can find and stay up to date on everything coming in and out of your account. And with TrueMark, you can also add your cards to your mobile wallet for those easy in-store and online payments. So if you're planning to travel, or maybe, again, buying that house, TrueMark also has mortgage specialists that offer guidance on loan options and terms and will help you assess your finances and credit score to determine borrowing capacity. So lots of options at TrueMark to save for that down payment, plan for that trip, plan for that house. And TrueMark Financial, which is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY. All right, let's roll on through our grades. Everybody so far, we got one out the way. Tyler Phillips, easy sample size, easy to start to talk through, the 26-year-old 6'5" pitcher. Now moving along, let's talk through Spencer Turnbull. Weirdly enough, as we've been grading the starting pitching, one thing to even take a step back for perspective, by this point of the season in the past, the Phillies would have rolled out 9, 10 starting pitchers. The Phillies have only had, now with Michael Mercado and Tyler Phillips, that number has gone up a little bit, but it's been 6 consistently, and then we've gotten a couple games and showings from Michael Mercado and Tyler Phillips each as a starting pitcher. Spencer Turnbull is one that has really grabbed the bull by the horns and comes into today with 7 games started, 35 and a third innings pitched. He's 2-0 on the season with a 1.78 ERA, a .849 WHIP, 38 Ks, and 3.2 Ks per walk. And his sweeper is a career-high 6-run value in 2024. His splits for his opponents, they are slashing a 146, 234, 276. Now, for Spencer Turnbull, this is just for his numbers as a starting pitcher, because that's where we got to see him the most so far this season. I'm going to let you guys kind of jump in with your grades, but for context for Spencer Turnbull, with his ERA on the season overall, the last 7 games for him, we only got to see him with that one game of a 3 ERA on the outing, 15 innings pitched, 5 earned runs that he gave up. Spencer Turnbull is a guy that we saw start off as the best across Major League Baseball. The numbers that he showed were remarkable. Nobody was expecting for the 5th starter to be top of Major League Baseball in ERA, for example. And looking at how he kicked off 2024, it was dangerous. It was scary because it's like, wait a minute, this is the Phillies' 5th starter. This is the guy that was filling in for Taijuan Walker. To come in the way that he did really caught a lot of us by surprise. And so for the early parts of the season, I'm just pulling up the exact ERA now, to have a 1.67 ERA in April, which then, of course, dipped in May. That April was incredible for Spencer Turnbull. And for me, okay, I guess I'm giving my grade. For me, I think I want to give him kind of like a, it's hard because he's fluctuated between being a starter, being a bullpen, going back, and then now an injury. The injury I expected, to be honest. I was kind of just waiting, like, it is only a matter of time before he gets injured. So I'm actually going to give him, this is a B-, for the simple fact that we do not have Spencer Turnbull right now. And if you are going to be an A-level pitcher, we need to be able to rely on you. If you're going to be even like a B+, it's great to have that flash in the pan for April. Unfortunately, it's not all his control because he did get moved to the bullpen. And he knew that, we all knew that was going to impact how he pitched. So I don't think it's fully on him, but I'm just going to give him a B-. I just feel like I'd love to see him be able to stay healthy and continue that streak, and to have a dip off, even if it's because of injury that we don't get to see him pitching. You're not helping the team right now. So I know that might be rude, but I think I'm gonna stand by my B-. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I think B- is accurate, Renee, because just of all what you said. And, you know, it is kind of tough just being from bullpen and then you become a spot starter because of injury. But, you know, every good team should have a couple bullpen guys who are ready to start, ready to spot start in case of an injury. And I think he's the perfect guy for that. I think he's a perfect change of pace guy for what all the other established starters have done. But then you look at his track record, you know, how long has he been a reliable starter before he gets injured? So I think B- is pretty accurate for him. But, you know, we want him on the field. We want him to be able to become that spot starter if need be. And, you know, he was much needed knowing that Taijuan Walker was going to be out for a while. And then you had both of these guys down. But, you know, I think once he comes back, I think he'll be a great addition. But they do have to watch what they do as far as just bringing him in and having him be a reliable 5th/6th starter.
Yeah, I think B- is right, you know, right on the money for Spencer Turnbull. That April was spectacular. And I think the unfortunate part about it is I think he got injured the way that he did because he went from starting, then he went to the bullpen and wasn't being used in the bullpen. It was like an inning here, a spot, you know, here where it was limited usage. And when you have a guy that's stretched out to start and then you put him in the bullpen and you're not using him for, you know, lengthy moments at a time out of the bullpen, it can kind of mess with just the way that your muscles are operating. And that's kind of what happened to Spencer Turnbull in my opinion.
Right.
And, you know, it is one of those things that it's weird that every time he's been injured, obviously he's a former Tiger, but he gets injured while the Phillies are in Detroit.
Yeah.
I think they need to cleanse out that stadium whenever Spencer Turnbull is there. But for him to come in on a $2 million contract in free agency, somebody that Dave Dombrowski knows from when he was in Detroit, so you have that trust factor there. It was one of those things that typically this doesn't work out for the Phillies either. You have those guys that you bring in free agency, whether it was, you know, back in the day, Charlie Morton, who gets injured after 3 starts and then goes on to win a World Series with the Braves and turns his career around. And these spot starters that the Phillies signed to be their number 5 typically don't work out. It feels like Spencer Turnbull's working out. He's fit into this clubhouse as well. He's well liked by everybody.
That's important.
And I think that's a huge factor as well from off the field standpoints. But B-, and I think when Spencer Turnbull comes back, like, it wouldn't shock me if he's in the rotation down the stretch.
Interesting. So what's your grade?
B-.
Okay, just confirming. Tyler,
So
are you breaking the B-
We
trend?
talked about this yesterday, Renee. My grading scale is based on a scale of expectations versus reality. And when they signed Spencer Turnbull, as Kyle brought up with the $2 million deal, low risk, high reward type of signing, I said to you guys, I think this is a good move. I think there's a chance that this guy could break camp with the team because to me, it kind of came down to Spencer Turnbull and Dylan Covey. And that was the conversation at the time. The guy, Covey was kind of your eat innings type of guy last year. Never in my wildest expectations would I have expected not only Spencer Turnbull to have to start the year out of the starting rotation, but to be as competent as he was for the first 6 starts of April into May. He kind of was a buoy for a team that, guys, go back to April. This team wasn't scoring a ton of runs in the first 3 weeks of the season. You know, obviously they've turned things around drastically offensively, and they've kind of gotten back to our expectations. But there was a stretch of time where there were a lot of tight, close games, especially against Cincinnati early in the season. We talked about the Pittsburgh series early in the year. Spencer Turnbull was a really important acquisition for this team when it was really heavily relying upon its starting pitching. To me, Spencer Turnbull, through the 6 games that he started in April and May, you can include the 7th in Detroit if you want with the 3 innings that he pitched. To me, he was so far above expectations for everything that I could have ever asked for. He gets a B+ for me as a starter.
Okay.
Because I'm stripping the bullpen appearances out because we're talking about starting pitching. This is strictly him as a starter. He gets a B+ for me.
So yes and no, but keep in mind, and OJ made a good point, the reason he was brought in for that $2 million was to be that guy that can flip between the bullpen and being a starter and not miss a beat. It's not easy to do, but as you talk about, there are guys that is their role. And for him to not be able to do that is why I gave him a B-. Because yes, you can separate the bullpen time versus the starting time, but that's his role. Every man has their role on this team, and Spencer Turnbull continues to had started off so strong, but then now isn't able to help. And you look at his injury history, just for reference for everybody that forgot. When you look at going back to 2019, he had a shoulder injury, a back injury. He was dealing with COVID in 2021. Everybody at some point dealt with some form of COVID. It felt like he had a forearm injury. Then it was an elbow injury in 2022, a neck injury in 2023, and now, of course, it is his back injury. And in his career, Spencer Turnbull has not been able to last more than... He had 148 innings pitched in 2019. He hasn't had more than 56 innings pitched at all since 2020. Unfortunately, he's sitting at 54 right now. So this is actually right on the money for where Spencer Turnbull has been in his career. He's already about to be at the second highest amount of innings pitched if he can just pitch a few more innings this season. This is uncharted territory for him. We talk about it with Ranger, which we'll get into, but his injury history is not good. I know Elephant in the Room is saying his injury history is insane. Every single season, 56 or less innings pitched, and you are a guy that's brought in to be able to fit in back and forth between the bullpen and the starting pitching. He is what you wanted him to be, but unfortunately, they need more. And right now, I know in the chat it was brought up what would happen if he was still healthy, if he wasn't moved to the bullpen and stayed as a starter instead of Taijuan Walker sliding back into the rotation. All these things we will never know. But what we do know is Taijuan Walker and his numbers, because Taijuan Walker, who a lot of people are ready to always hate on, and we know why, he frustrates us at times. In his 10 games that he started, Taijuan has pitched 53 innings. He's 3-3 on the season so far with a 5.6 ERA, a 1.491 whip, 43 Ks, 2.1 Ks per walk. His hard hit rate, 51.2%. The K rate is near a career low, and his opponents are slashing a 284, 352, 5.10 against Taijuan Walker. Taijuan Walker has been brought in, although his contract is large, and everybody likes to keep in mind and talk about how much he's been paid, because the man got paid. But Taiweezy, as they apparently call him, is an innings eater. He has been brought in to simply be able to just get you to, whether it's 100 and whatever innings he was able to pitch last season, to being a guy that's just comes in as that number 5 starter and just helps keep the rotation on track. He's not someone that's coming in to get strikes. He's not someone that's coming in to do what you have at the top of the order. Unfortunately, though, Taijuan has not even been able to do that. This season, in my opinion, has been off the mark of everything he was expected to do. I know they talked about it. Rob mentioned it. Taijuan's talked about it. His velocity's down. His command is down. Everything that's been working for Taijuan, he has not been doing. Now, part of that is a blister lingering, question mark. Right now, as he's getting ready for rehab assignment. But I just think Taijuan Walker, I'm going to give him a C. C minus, honestly, in that range, because he's another one. You've been injured, and I know you can't fully control injuries. I get that. But as an athlete, I also get that you can. Like, you can, to an extent, be healthy and be available for your team. If you're brought in to be the innings eater, you have to be able to be out there to pitch some innings for us. And then when you were out there for Taijuan Walker's games that we saw this season, not good in the amount of runs he's giving up, the amount he struggled. But I also still feel like he was rushed back in the beginning of the season. I don't think Taijuan was ever fully ready to start. I think the pressure of Spencer Turnbull pitching so well kind of rushed Taijuan Walker back. And I always wonder, had he gotten a few more rehab assignments before being brought in, what would Taijuan Walker's game look like? But either way, he just has not ever, it's July. We have not seen Taijuan Walker, really. I think there were 1 or 2 games where you kind of felt good about him, but he hasn't given anything this season. It's unfortunate.
I think with Taijuan Walker, too, like you mentioned, I definitely feel like he was rushed back. When you see some of the performances he had down at the minor leagues where velocity's down, he's not getting strikeouts, that should have been a red flag in and of itself to be like, okay, let's reassess this situation. But like you said, he is an innings eater, and I think those first 2 starts that he had, he was kind of a victim of managerial decision where he should have been pulled after, a couple go rounds where you pull him in those games, his ERA is not as inflated. You know, that San Diego game stands out to me where he ends up giving up all those runs. You take him out after the 6 innings, we're not talking about, you know, a poor start from Taijuan Walker. I do think he is a C- because he has been injured. It's been multiple injuries. And I do think having a chance to have gotten to meet Taijuan Walker once, he's a very prideful guy and he wants to be out there to support this team. It hurt him a lot to not pitch in the postseason last year as well. So he wanted to make his mark. And I do think he personally rushed himself back. I think the team rushed him back just out of necessity and not burning Spencer Turnbull out too soon as well. But I do think Taijuan Walker is going to get a C- from me. And, you know, is there an opportunity for him to bounce back in the second half? Absolutely. But I don't think that, you know, you can rush him back from this instance on the injured list as quickly as you did to begin the season. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster. And then Dave Dombrowski's going to have to pivot and potentially go and make a move for a starting pitcher at the trade deadline and use some assets that you would use towards another player that could help this team as well down the stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll put him just right at a C, just giving everything into account, just with the injuries, being rushed back, and all. And I really do hope that it is the injuries and that's been affecting his velocity and just affecting his performance. Because again, what you said, Renee, you do need a part of your rotation to eat innings, and that's kind of what he was brought here for. You know, we know what we're getting with the top flight starters on this team. So I just really wish that he does come back healthy, and hopefully that was the issue. And just another thing, just with you meeting Taijuan Walker as well, I think it's important that he's also well liked in the clubhouse. So even though a lot of people just want to ship him off because he has not performed up to expectations, even I think Cristopher Sanchez said at one of his interviews, he learns a lot from Taijuan because he's a seasoned veteran. So I do think that he'll be an important part of his team going down the stretch. And maybe it might be the best thing to just make sure that he's healthy coming down the stretch to win the division and also be available for the playoffs.
Yeah. Tyler, what you got?
This is probably the harshest grade I'll give in any of this. He gets an F. Taijuan Walker is in the 1 percentile in every expected offensive category. He's in the 12th percentile in barrels. He's in the 1st percentile in barrel percentage. His exit velocity, his hard hit percentage are all in the 1 percentile. He's striking out career low numbers. You guys talked about the velocity being down. That's okay if your velocity's down, if you kind of transcend and become a different type of pitcher. He has not done that yet. And the one that really jumps out to me as the biggest problem is his splitter has been his best pitch his entire career. It's always been his best pitch, especially when the discrepancy in velocity was a little bit more. You can, again, get away with 90-91 if you're offsetting that with good location and you're offsetting that with missing bats. He's not doing any of that to the effect. And the fact that his splitter at this point is pretty much one of the worst pitches in baseball. It's a -6 run value, despite the fact that he's only made 10 appearances this season. I'm not so sure there's any salvaging Taijuan Walker's career at this point. You guys bring up a good point. He seems to be well-liked. He's making a ton of money. He's not going anywhere, and he's going to get starts in the second half. Like, there's no debating that. I just think at this point, the fact that Taijuan Walker seems to be almost just like, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall watching him pitch it on a nightly basis. I need him to adjust and become a different type of pitcher. And over the last 2 seasons, I haven't seen any of that to merit me feeling like, okay, he can learn how to pitch and, move in and out, up and down, change velocity, change location. Right now, I just don't feel comfortable with Taijuan Walker on the mound in any particularly high leverage situations. Like I said, he's going to pitch in August and September. They need innings. But come playoff time, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not even sure he makes the playoff roster.
Ooh. Tyler, lowering the boom. Honestly, it's valid. I do think, unfortunately, for me, what I keep in mind is I don't know that Taijuan has fully ever been ready. And as you each touched on, it felt not only was he rushed back, but because, keep in mind the timing of his return. You had already, I'm trying to think of when Aaron's complete game was, but at that point, either way, you already have had Ranger, Aaron, Zach, and Cristopher Sanchez pitching 7, 8, 9 innings. You already have had Spencer Turnbull pitching so well, and it felt like they were trying to force him into being able to do the same. And we did see drastically for Taijuan, not only was he stretched too long in those first starts, but he was not getting worse as the game progressed, but getting worse as the season progressed. His ERA dropped. The amount of runs he was giving up, the amount of everything was dropping. Each game, he was actually statistically getting worse. So it felt like it was only a matter of time before they had to figure out what's really lingering, bothering you. I don't know how true the blister is and what really is going on with that, but Taijuan Walker, unfortunately, has been the biggest struggle for this starting pitching rotation. One guy that's been a big surprise, though, Cristopher Sanchez. Sanchi has had quite a start to the season and been phenomenal. Not only is he coming off of his first All-Star appearance, something that he had dreamed of doing, he also has, in his 18 games started, pitched 103 and a third innings, 7-4 on the season with a 2.96 ERA, a 1.229 WHIP, 87 Ks, 3.1 Ks per walk, and he's tied for first on his changeup run value at 12. His opponents are slashing a 253, 302, 319. I'm interested to know what you guys are grading Sanchi, because when you look at his numbers, this guy has blown every expectation out of the water. I think for me, I was most intrigued to see how is he going to look with a full season at the major league level. How's he going to look with a full season of confidence? He mentioned like the imposter syndrome. He didn't use those words, but essentially that's what he was alluding to, is gone. He feels like he belongs in this clubhouse. He understands his role. And to have a 1.5 ERA at home on the season so far means not only is he doing great, but at home, he's thriving even more. When you've got your fans around you, you're in your own ballpark, and Cristopher Sanchez has been really good. To be top in Major League Baseball in ERA, to be top in Major League Baseball in general, as the fourth starter for the Phillies, teams would dream of having 3 good starters, let alone 4. So I'm actually going to give Cristopher Sanchez, I don't know what's keeping me from giving him like an A+, but I don't want to be too fluffy. I'm going to give him just like an A-. There have been some games we've seen from Cristopher Sanchez, but I feel like those are the games where he's human. You know, you look on the road especially, he's got a 5.54 ERA on the road, and there are some games that jump out at me that Cristopher Sanchez just didn't have it. But because of this being so much new, I think he's handling it well, and I actually expect him to have dips at time. I expect him to have his velocity off, give up some runs. But the way that he's been able to bounce back through that and continue to be a really lights-out fourth starter, I'm actually going to give him an A-.
He gets an A+ from me.
Oh!
A+. He has been, I think, the biggest like welcomed surprise of the season.
Okay, I like that.
Where not many people had expectations for what Cristopher Sanchez was going to be coming into the year. Sure, he's been a part of this team. He's pitched, you know, a relative amount of innings where you kind of had an idea of what he could be. But for him to kind of burst onto the scene this year, the way that he has, like you mentioned, at home as well, where it can be an environment that is intimidating even if you do play for the Phillies. I think he has been spectacular. For him to get named to the All-Star game was beyond deserving. And like you mentioned, you have teams that wish they had 1, 2 starting pitchers. The Phillies have 4 starting pitchers that are in the Cy Young candidacy, and Cristopher Sanchez is one of them. To have your number 4 starter being mentioned in the breath of a Cy Young candidate is crazy. That doesn't happen. And I think his relationship with not only just the players on the team, but the pitching staff in general, you can tell how much Cristopher Sanchez has learned from somebody like a Ranger Suarez, has learned from Taijuan Walker on how to be a pro. And, you know, it's been rewarded already. He gets a 4-year contract extension during the season. I think that showcases that this Phillies team believes in him, not only for now, but moving forward. And for him to be performing at the way he is spectacular. And I think I saw something last night on social media. He's the first pitcher in the All-Star game to throw 2 pitches and get 2 outs. It's never happened before in the All-Star game. So, like, that's another feather in his cap that, you know, he gets to showcase around. And I think Cristopher Sanchez, going into the second half of the year now and into the playoffs, the Phillies have 4 capable starters that you can throw in a playoff series. That's also not normal. Typically, you're shortening your rotation almost like basketball to have 3 guys going and then maybe a bullpen game here and there. But to have 4 guys that you can rely on going into the second half of the season and into the postseason is such a value, and Cristopher Sanchez's value to this team can't be understated.
Yeah, I think a solid A, and just a couple things. I remember Rob Thompson saying a couple weeks ago that Cristopher Sanchez could very well be an ace for a lot of teams in Major
Yeah.
League Baseball. That's how well he's pitched. That's how he's evolved as a quality starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. And I think what you also said is that the Phillies making a commitment to him. And also another thing that you said, Renee, him suffering from a bit of imposter syndrome. I think that contract was a big thing that solidified that, hey, I belong not only as a major leaguer, but I belong as a starter in this league, and he can succeed. And I think being around guys like Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, even some of the other guys, learning from them, learning how to be a pro. I think that's done wonders for him this year, and him being a pleasant surprise because last year, coming into the season, we were like, okay, what are we going to get from Sanchez? I mean, he's a tremendous pro now.
Yeah.
Renee, you and I have worked together now for what? 9 months, 10 months, something along those lines. Is there a player on this team that I have sung the praises more than of Cristopher Sanchez? The maturation process that this kid has gone through over the last 35, 40 starts of his career have been nothing short of spectacular. You guys talked about the velocity, right? They basically said to him, lower your velocity, become a pitcher, stop being a thrower, become a pitcher, and we'll ramp your velocity back up. He figured out how to the maturation of becoming a major league pitcher, and the velocity has increased once again. It's back up to 96, 95, 96. He sometimes tops out at 97. This guy's changeup is one of the best pitches in baseball.
Yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward. Renee, you talked about the home-away splits. The other split that is pretty obvious is his ground ball fly ball ratio. Cristopher Sanchez gets in trouble when he leaves the baseball up in the zone. Cristopher Sanchez is an elite arm when he keeps the changeup and keeps the sinker down, and is able to kind of parlay that slider off of the other two pitches. The way that this guy has gone about his business this season has given me so much hope for a postseason run, because now you're not relying on a last year Chris Sanchez maybe get one time through the rotation. 2 years ago, are you going to Syndergaard? Are you going to Bailey Falter? What is your fourth arm in a CS in a World Series? This year, it's four guys. You guys brought it up. I trust all four of these guys pretty immensely. And to have a fourth starter when maybe another team is going to a bullpen game or going to a guy who hasn't pitched in 11 days type of scenario, you have the upper hand. Cristopher Sanchez has been a revelation for this baseball team. And when it comes to expectation versus reality, the expectation for Chris Sanchez was to be a 4 or a 5. The reality is he could be a 2 on somebody else's team. Kyle, I agree with you. He gets an A+ for me.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel harsh for giving an A-, but I had to double check the games. There were about 4 games that he wasn't able to go more than 4 innings. Cincinnati and Washington in April. He had one in May actually did not have one in May, excuse me. He had one in June against the Red Sox, and then he most recently against the Cubs has struggled at times. But for everything you guys said, he definitely is deserving of being an A- or higher, with how well he has thrown all expectations out the window and has exceeded all of them to be such a great addition to this starting core. He's been fun to watch. He's definitely learning how to control it. They talked a lot about physically the changes they had to make with him being a taller guy, lankier guy, and we're seeing it translate even with, as you mentioned, Tyler, the velocity, his command, his sinker, his changeup. It's all there. Looking ahead, Ranger Suarez, as we wrap up our final 3 here, Ranger Suarez, another one that for the Phillies is the number 3, but for many would be their number 1, without a doubt. 19 games started, 114 innings pitched. He's 10-4 in the season with a 2.76 ERA. He's got a 1.044 whip, 112 Ks, 4.3 Ks per walk. He's one of 10 pitchers that's had a complete game shutout. 3 of them are Phillies, of course, and his opponents are slashing a 219, 273, 340 split. Now, for Ranger Suarez, I'm going to give him an A. I really am struggling to give anybody A+ because I just feel like nobody's been perfect. But I'm going to give him an A for the fact that he's 1,000% exceeded expectations. His injury in his back injury that he just recently, we learned about, I should say, is no surprise. As we talked about with Spencer, Ranger is also already in a spot now where he has pitched more innings now at July, whatever the date is, midway point of July, than he's pitched in pretty much every season of his career except for like two, excuse me. He has not pitched more than 114 innings in seasons outside of 2022 and 2023. And you want to know how many innings he pitched in those seasons? 125 and 155. He is already right now on schedule to pass his career high of innings pitched, and it is still only the halfway point of the season. Ranger has been phenomenal, and I expected him to have at some point a comeback to human moment where it would catch up to him how many innings he's pitched, catch up to him how he's just been unhittable, and how teams have been game planning now to figure out how can we get after Ranger Suarez. Obviously, we've seen a dip, but I know it's because of the back injury. I'm going to give him an A. I would give him an A+, but again, I'm trying not to say anybody's perfect. There's always room for improvement, but Ranger doesn't have much room for improvement. To me, it's just stay healthy, and Ranger Suarez is going to be lights out.
Yeah, I agree. I was just with you, Renee, and wanting to give him an A+, but because of his last couple starts. But again, you probably attest that to his injury. You hope it's just the injury, and he's just not just coming back to earth on the surface. But just with this rotation, you have to have a consummate lefty. You know, I'm a lefty too myself, but anyway, but you have to have a consummate lefty, a dominant lefty on any staff if you're going to win a World Series. And I think Ranger is that guy. He can continue to be that guy. And, you know, there were some questions about Suarez coming into the season, sort of like Sanchez, but we knew Suarez had more of a pedigree than Sanchez, and he's just evolved as a pitcher as well. I mean, he has more experience, but you know, he has become that pro too, and he's become that 1, 2, 3 guy that you can rely on, along with Wheeler and along with Nola.
Yeah, I'm giving Ranger an A. And I think, you know, obviously the back injury is recent, but I think two other things that stand out to me with this recent like blip on the radar for Ranger. Number one, I don't think we put too much stock into how much value it was for Ranger to have his family here, but also how much pressure that has probably put on him to want to perform for his wife and his kids, knowing that they're going to be at Citizens Bank Park as much as possible, being this is the first time that they've seen him pitch professionally. I think that's a huge thing for somebody like Ranger, who is still so young in his major league career and wants to show to his family, like, hey, this is how I'm providing for us, and this is what I do. I want to be at the best possible state that I can. And I think that's a lot of pressure. And then the kind of fall has happened since JT Realmuto's injury happened. And I don't think we can overstate how valuable JT is to this team. And I think JT is so valuable to somebody like Ranger, where he's really the only catcher that he knows. Sure, Garrett Stubbs has been there, but you know, Garrett Stubbs is a great backup catcher. He's a great defensive game calling catcher, but JT kind of knows Ranger's tendencies, knows where he wants pitches. And that's really when we started to kind of see the issues happen with Rangers, when JT goes out and now you're mixing in two different catchers that Ranger's not necessarily familiar with. I think that has to play a factor into it as well. But Ranger's been phenomenal. I think, you know, to have him as your number 3 starter is just as crazy as Cristopher Sanchez being your number 4. So Ranger gets an A from me for sure. And
you're talking about one of the best veteran, period, but one of the best catchers in the game in JT. So that's a really good point, actually. Tyler, what's your grade?
Yeah, he gets an A- for me, and I think I'm not going to allow those last couple of starts to mar him any kind of slump any further than what it is. I think a dead arm period. I think the back tightness doesn't help, and you know, like you talked about, it's a guy who's getting closer and closer to, you know, shattering his innings cap for his career. The one thing I will say, I think teams have adjusted to Ranger a little bit on is they're jumping on him first pitch a lot more frequently than they were in the first couple months of the year. If you get behind on Ranger Suarez, he is such a tough battle because he does throw 5 pitches. He has 5 pitches in which he's thrown at least 12.5% of the time. The sinker, the curveball, the four seam, the changeup, the cutter, they all work in kind of continuity with each other because he doesn't have a blow you away fastball and he doesn't have the devastating wipeout, you know, curveball or slider or whatever the case may be. He is an efficient, effective pitcher who just knows how to get outs. But I think he can be gotten on the first couple of pitches of the at-bat because he pounds the strike zone so effectively. His walk rates are at career low. He's throwing a ton of strikes. And for me, I think he's going to have to learn once again, kind of how to adjust to that adjustment and pitch backwards a little bit. A little more breaking balls to start at bats, maybe even a little bit less strikes, if that makes any sense, which is just silly to say. But I don't have any concerns past, the back tightened up. I think he's in a little bit of a dead arm period. I think this rest is good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great points you guys all bring up. It is phenomenal when you think about how well Ranger started the season. And he did have that comebacker. I know in the chat you guys are trying to figure out exactly what the injury was. It was the comebacker that hurt his hand. And then most recently it was his back tightness. So he has had a couple of injuries that, listen, he's human. Injuries are going to, especially a hand and a back, it's going to impact your pitching. And to see how he was able to have his ERA in April under 1, a 0.75 ERA. It did rise to a whole 2.32 that he had for the ERA in the month of May. And then June and July have not been as great. He had a 3.4 ERA for the month of June and a 7.36 so far in July. He has unfortunately been dealing with, as the season progresses, just some fatigue that you expect, especially with him being in a spot where he's near the career high of his innings pitched. So when you look at this starting pitching as a whole, though, a lot of positives to take away from it. We unfortunately are out of time. So we're going to continue with Aaron and Zach tomorrow. Cliffhanger. You're going to get those grades tomorrow. But overall, guys, I really appreciate you for joining us today, Kyle and OJ, weighing in on how the Phillies have been doing, the All-Star game, your thoughts on the starting pitching. It's been a blast having you here on the show.
Well, thank you, Renee. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Ton of fun being here. Shout out to the chat for interacting. And, let's have a strong start to the second half for the Phils.
I know. It's starting soon, guys. Friday, as the Phillies are back at it. I can't wait to see them play again. It's been nice-ish, but now it's time to get back to games. It's time to get back. So for those of you that are tuned in tomorrow, we'll be back live again. We'll be recapping at 11 a.m. We'll finish up our starting pitching grades and also getting to the infielders and outfielders before we start to preview Friday's match. So Kyle, OJ, thank you guys so much for joining us on the show today. Thank you all for tuning in to PHLY Phillies podcast. And for the entire crew here, have a great rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy a Phillies-free baseball day. Get out. I don't even know what we do when we don't have Phillies games. Get out, have some fun, and we'll see you guys next time here on PHLY Phillies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.